Hello, fellow explorers. Welcome to Julie's channel. It's been a wild ride for Joanna Duggar and her family recently, especially with the health scares surrounding her little boy, Gunnar. It seems like Joanna just can't catch a break with all that's been going on lately: hospital runs, sleepless nights, and not to mention the financial struggles she and her husband, Austin Forsyth, are currently facing. Let's unpack what's really been going down, starting with the most recent, and honestly, terrifying, incident involving Gunnar. So, on Sunday, Joanna shared with her Instagram followers a gut-wrenching update about her son. Gunnar had to be rushed to the hospital after what started as a mild cold took a turn for the worse. You know how it is with toddlers: a little cough here, a runny nose there, it usually seems like no big deal. But for Gunnar, things escalated fast. Within a day of showing symptoms, he started wheezing and struggling to breathe. Imagine the sheer panic of watching your baby fight for air and nothing you're doing at home seems to help. I mean, she must have been completely frantic, right? Joanna mentioned they had done everything they could on their own to try to ease his breathing, but none of it was working. So, they made the decision to take him to the When they got there, doctors immediately jumped into action, giving Gunnar breathing treatments, steroids, and suctioning his nose to clear it out. Despite all these efforts, his breathing still sounded labored, and his little chest was rising and falling heavily. He just couldn't catch a break. Ultimately, the hospital had no choice but to admit him. Can you imagine spending not just one, but 2 sleepless nights in the hospital, just anxiously watching your child struggle to get better? Joanna said she didn't sleep at all. She just stood there, holding Gunnar, as he woke up every 20 minutes, crying because he was so uncomfortable. That image alone, it's enough to tug at anyone's heartstrings. And what's worse is that this isn't even the first time something like this has happened. For Joanna and Austin, hospital visits with Gunnar seem to be becoming a distressingly familiar experience. Just this past June, they had another terrifying scare. Gunnar actually choked on a piece of ham. Can you believe that? Food, a basic, everyday thing, nearly turned into an absolute nightmare. Joanna described it in detail in one of her YouTube videos, and honestly, I don't know how she kept it together. She had to hand her son over to Austin, who, by the way, is an EMT, because she couldn't get him to cough the piece of ham up. Imagine that, your baby's choking, and nothing you do is working. The worst kind of helplessness, right? Austin eventually got Gunnar to breathe again, but even then, it was just shallow breaths. And the poor kid was completely lethargic. They made a mad dash to the hospital, and on the way there, Gunnar actually stopped breathing multiple times. Joanna shared how she was just screaming out to God to save him, because in that moment, she genuinely thought she was going to lose her son. Luckily, by the time they reached the Gunnar was breathing normally again, and even managed to giggle while they took his x-rays. But can you even imagine the trauma of that drive to the hospital? Now, let's talk about what could be behind these repeated hospital runs. According to Joanna, asthma runs in their family, so she's thinking that might be something Gunnar's dealing with, though they won't know for sure until he's older. Every time he catches even the slightest cold, it seems like his lungs just can't handle it. She's relieved that they made it to the hospital in time, and that Gunnar didn't get any worse, but the thought that this could be an ongoing issue has got to be weighing heavily on her. Can you imagine how exhausting it must be, not knowing if the next cold will land you back in the Constantly walking on eggshells with your child's health is no joke. But let's switch gears for a second, because Joanna's had a lot more than just health scares on her plate. Money problems seem to be plaguing the couple, too. They've been open about trying to sell their home, and honestly, in today's market, that's a whole ordeal in itself. And get this, Joanna has even made some bold moves that have caught fans' attention. For one, she's been pretty open about breaking some of her dad Jim Bob's strict modesty rules. Rules that all the Duggar daughters grew up with. Now, we all know the Duggar's have their whole ultra-conservative thing going on, especially when it comes to how the women in the family dress. Jim Bob has always been really adamant about modesty. You know, long skirts, no pants, covering up. Well, Joanna's been stepping out in ways that would definitely make her dad raise an eyebrow, to say the least. She's been rocking pants and even more casual, less modest outfits. And she doesn't seem to care about what anyone, including her family, has to say about it. It's definitely a huge departure from the rules she grew up with. It's hard not to wonder how Jim Bob feels about seeing his daughter living her life on her own terms. Maybe it's part of a larger shift happening with the Duggar kids as they grow older and start to question some of the stuff they were raised with. So, with Gunnar's health issues, the stress of selling their home, and breaking away from her family's strict traditions, Joanna's been going through it. But through it all, she's stayed positive. She's grateful that they've been able to get Gunnar the care he needs, and she's relieved that they're slowly getting things sorted out, both health-wise and financially. And that's something that's really stood out to me about Joanna. She's always looking at the silver lining, even when things get tough. She's balancing the struggles of being a mom with the added pressures of being in the public eye, and she's doing it with grace, even if things aren't always picture perfect. So, what do you guys think? Do you feel like Joanna's decision to break away from her dad's modesty rules is a sign of personal growth? And how do you think the family is handling all of these ongoing challenges? Let me know in the comments below, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how she's navigating everything. It's definitely a lot for anyone to handle, let alone someone who's been raised in such a structured and controlled environment. That's it for today's update. If you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on the latest celeb and TV news. And as always, I'll be here, digging into the stories you need to know. See you next time.